The Danville City Commission regular meeting. Today's date is Monday, February the 12th. The time is 5:30 p.m. and to all the men and women in attendance and all the men and women that are viewing this broadcast, on behalf of the City Commission, happy Valentine's Day. We welcome you to this meeting, and we have 25 items on our agenda, so we're going to try to get through real quickly, but we'll be here for a while. I've already asked some folks to take care of my wife for Valentine's Day, because I don't expect to get home until after Valentine's Day. So y'all been giving y'all's tasks, your assignments, right? So let's go. We're going to officially start our meeting off with prayer led by Commissioner Holland, and then we're going to have a Pledge of Allegiance to the flag led by two very prominent Boy Scouts in our community. Grayson DeGorka, a Danville High School senior. He's working on his Eagle Scout badge, and his topic is homelessness. And I met with him today along with Banks Bradshaw. Pretty good? Okay. And he's a current Bate Middle School 8th grader, but he's also a scout. And Grayson went home and put his uniform on. Look official tonight. Appreciate that. So, Commissioner Holland?
I thought we might have a moment of silence to honor Officer Sparks and all the first responder men and women that have been impacted by recent losses. So let's have a moment of silence. Thank you.
Guys, you want to come forward? Commissioner Call, you want to assist those two scouts? Those servicemen? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There's nothing better looking than a man in a uniform, right? Except for a lady in a uniform. All right, let's go. Commissioners, you've had the agenda since last Friday, and I would like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Been advised by staff to take item number 3, remove it from our agenda. So can we entertain a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the agenda has been approved as amended. Next on our agenda is that we hear from the public, and at this stage of our agenda, we hear from the public who want to discuss with us or discuss to us about items that are currently on today's agenda. You would make your comments in 3 minutes or less. Raise your hand, and the chair will try to recognize you, and you come up to the podium and use the microphone, and we'll listen to you. So is there anyone that desires to speak to the commission about items on the agenda? I appreciate that. Let's move right along. Next item on our agenda is a presentation by our local United Way. Mrs. Blevins, thank you for being here tonight, ma'am.
Absolutely. So we like to come and just share kind of what we're doing. This year, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach and let you know the things that would not be in our community if it were not for United Way. As you all may or may not know, we do not receive state, federal, or local funding. All of our funding comes through local donors, which truly shows you how much our community cares about our neighbors. In your packet, and I'm not going to read all of these, I know we're on that tight time frame, but you will see our community partners. There's 2 different sections to that. The blue section goes through the allocation process, which is pretty arduous, but rightfully so. We promise our donors that their money will make an impact in our community and make a difference in people's lives. The project awards, those are for any nonprofit that has something come up throughout the year for $2,500 or less, they could apply for a project grant. That committee meets monthly. Those project grants are then awarded or decided on by that committee. I will remind you that board of United Way. The staff of United Way do not make decisions on funding. That goes through volunteers, of which you all served on some of those this year, and I appreciate that. The other thing that you see in your packet are some of the impact numbers on the right-hand side, as well as some frequently asked questions. And then there is a survey in the back that we'd love for you to fill out and give your feedback on. We work on a lot of different projects throughout the year as well, directly from our office. I wanted to share one real brief with you, which is our Getting Ahead in a Getting By world. We currently have 10 women, all who have either given birth in the last 4 months or are getting ready to give birth, that through Haven Care, that are going through this 16-week program. We hire them as experts. We pay them through gift cards. We feed them a meal each time that they come. It's a large investment for United Way, but what it does is it allows them to not only see where they currently are in their generational poverty model that they are now, but how they can actually get out of generational poverty. And so that 16-week program has proven very successful. We have had people that got off of social services because of this program, and so we're extremely excited to have 10 women going through that currently. I'll be glad to answer any questions or talk any more about what's in the folder, but you have everything in front of you.
Wow, thank you, ma'am. Are there any
Yes.
questions or comments from the commission?
Looking for the survey.
From the survey?
Thank you for what you all do for the community. And these events here that are in there, talk a little bit
Those are
about
the
those.
three major fundraisers we do. We have Glow Ball, which is golf at night. If you're interested in that, if you're terrible at golf, this is the event for you, and you get first dinner and second dinner. We have Yakko, which is a kayak and canoe scavenger hunt on Cedar Creek Lake, and then we have Laugh United out at Pioneer Playhouse.
Well, I want to thank you for allowing the mayor and the commission to be a part of the appropriations process.
Absolutely.
I had done it several years before, but it's definitely changed, much improvement, and lots more homework than it was the last time I remember, but good process. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Wow. Next on the agenda is Mr. Rob Cowell, who's going to present the airport board presentation. Thank you for your attendance tonight as well.
You're welcome. And did everyone on the commission get the newsletter that we sent out ahead of time? And
Yes, sir.
I just want to take the opportunity to thank, that newsletter is the inspiration of Jake Bell. He's also the writer, the editor, and publisher. And so it's a professional publication, and we
Yes.
really appreciate what he does. And it's, you know, it reflects well on the airport as well as the community. So I just want to make sure everybody knows who the author of that was. And then secondly, we had, one of the items that was in that publication was the new ramp that we've just completed out at the airfield. We'll have the punch list walkthrough this Friday, but there is a $294,000 of that project that the funding is just becoming available through the FAA. I don't know if you noticed in the newspaper, there was an article, Mitch McConnell's office had announced the final $294,000, and that grant should be coming across your desk later this week. And I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of it, and if you needed to get approval, that we have the city attorney and mayor authorized to sign that grant.
Sounds good. We don't get to split the grant money, though, do we?
No.
Man.
So we're good.
We're good.
there.
Yes,
there.
I think so.
And the only other thing I do want to mention, I noticed it was not in the publication, but this Saturday, once a month, there is a group called Wings Dream Flight Charities. And it's actually a statewide group that raises funds to give young folks that might not otherwise be able to afford to take flying lessons, grants to pay for their lessons through their, I guess it would be their first solo. And so There are several students. If you want to Google Dream Flight Charities or the Wing Flight School, you'll find that this Saturday, the retired Commissioner of Aeronautics, Steve Parker, who's been involved with STEM programs around the state and education of youth, but he is going to be speaking at their 11:30-ish in the morning. But go to their website if it's something you're interested in, and it's a cold winter day, you might want to go out and listen to him, and I think you'll enjoy what he has to say about aviation and inspiring youth. And so that's really all I have, unless you have any other questions.
Rob,
Thank
I
you,
was
sir.
just going to say, Mayor, out of an abundance of caution, would you just accept a motion to approve the signing of the grant application by the mayor and council as a matter of form, so we can have it in the record, please?
I move that we authorize the mayor and the city attorney to sign the grant money check.
Second.
I'll second that.
I'll never make a motion, but I did, didn't I? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you all. Thank you, sir. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Powell?
Congratulations.
Yes.
Good news.
Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda is a proclamation in honor of recognition of National COVID Memorial Day. And Commissioner Holland is going to read that proclamation for us.
Okay.
I'm glad
Have
you're
it
doing
here?
better, young lady.
I
All
am.
right.
I'm back. Can't get rid of me.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, this is a proclamation for COVID-19 Victims and Survivors Memorial Day. Whereas the first Monday in March has been designated as COVID-19 Victims and Survivors Memorial Day, and whereas COVID-19 is an illness caused by a virus that can be transmitted from person to person and is spread across the world, creating a global pandemic that continues to have catastrophic effects on human life, our community, and our economy. Whereas local and state governments, health departments, and public servants continue to monitor the effects of the virus, take action to protect residents, support struggling local economies, and find innovative ways to provide services. And whereas the symptoms and severity of COVID-19 can vary dramatically by individual and long-term health implications, for survivors is largely unknown, as many survivors suffer with lingering side effects of the disease. And whereas 1.1 million people in the United States and over 20,000 Kentuckians have lost their lives due to COVID-19, with over 180 lives lost due to the deadly virus in Bull County alone. Each life lost to COVID-19 has meaning and leaves a hole in the hearts of loved ones, family members, and our community. Now, therefore, the city of Danville, in remembrance of those who have lost their lives and in honor of those who are forever marked by COVID and continue to suffer for the impact of the virus, supports the designation of the first Monday in March as COVID-19 Memorial Day in Danville and encourages all residents to observe this day.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Blevins, would you come forward and receive this proclamation once the commission does a motion for acceptance?
I move that we accept the proclamation into the record.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? Would you all join me in presenting this to Mr. Blevins? He's our director of our Boyd County Health Department, and once again, I want to personally thank you for what you did for our entire community during the crisis that is still amongst us.
Get a new one.
They've been trying to tell me go home early, but that was my warning.
Be careful.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let's move right along. We have a DAHB realignment presentation by our Planning and Zoning Director, Michaela Gary. You come forward, please, ma'am.
Yep, so this is less of a presentation than it is asking for an approval of the zoning ordinance text amendment that we're looking to do, which would
Okay.
essentially realign the Danville Architectural Heritage Board under Planning Commission rather than being under city government as it is now. The Danville-Boyle County Planning and Zoning Commission met in regular session on January 24th, 2024, in the Danville City Commission chambers with 9 members present for this text amendment to Articles 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7 of the joint zoning ordinance. After a public hearing had been conducted, the Planning Commission's vote was 9 yeas for a recommendation for approval to the Danville City Commission. The goal of this change is basically just to streamline processes. There's a lot of overlap between the DHB and then what Planning Commission does, so we're hoping to be able to integrate some of our applications, things like that. So we're hoping it will lead to a more streamlined, cohesive process. Basically, with this text amendment, Henry Smith, our Planning Commission attorney, and Stephen Dexter worked really hard on the language for this text amendment, but they basically just brought the language that we have in city codes now into the joint zoning ordinance, so it will bring that authority and the role of the DHB under Planning Commission. So the intent is not to change the roles or duties or anything of the DHB. We didn't really tweak any language as far as that's concerned. It's just basically a reorganization. Earl and Stephen worked basically on a committee with us on this, so they can jump in at any point if they've got anything they want to add, but.
No, I want to thank you and thank the members of the DHB that participated and the members of the planning and zoning that participated in some of the discussions. Really, it wasn't necessarily a formal committee, but there were several of us that did meet to talk about the idea. We do think it's an improvement to someone that wants to come into downtown and start a business, right? It's just one-stop shop. It's cleaner. It's easier. Fundamentally, it doesn't change. It is still a city-appointed board. It is still a city-intended program. It's just the administration of it is housed under planning and zoning, which is a like agency in one sense.
Yeah, this is pretty common in other communities to be housed under Planning Commission. And this is still only going to be applicable to Danville currently. With this change, it's not expanding this into other jurisdictions. I'm taking this through to get approved by all jurisdictions because it's a joint zoning ordinance, but it's still just applicable to Danville currently.
Okay,
So,
thank you, ma'am.
yep.
Chair would like to entertain a motion, and then we'll discuss further if need be. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the text amendment for Articles 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7 as presented by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Oh, pretty good. Could you repeat that, please?
I'll
Is there-
second.
Thank you all, okay. Questions or comments from the commissioners?
No, just thank you for
Makes sense.
making one stop, so.
All right. Well, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Great.
Mayor, I should just add to that, I think what you've just voted on tonight is really the culmination of years, that's the correct word, years of planning for what you just voted on to try to integrate a more cohesive system. And it's one that your city staff is actively pursuing at all times to try to streamline different processes in the city. This isn't a small item that you just passed. I think it's worth noting.
Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the previous meetings. Chair would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of 1/22/2024.
Thank you, ma'am.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments, additions or deletions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you all. Item number 7, Mr. Boyd, Resolution 2024-02-1201, Peel and Holland contract renewal.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This, in front of you, you have our health insurance broker renewal contract for the next fiscal year. The Pill and Holland has served the city well for the last 2 plan years. The staff's recommending renewal of those contract terms for the upcoming plan year. It is a, total contract cost is $53,599. That is a 5% increase over the prior year of approximately $2,600, which is not unexpected in these economic times to see an increase. We were lucky to get a rate stay last year, but, so staff's recommend renewal of that agreement. And then just to clarify, this is only the renewal of our brokerage agreement, not our healthcare plans, as those will be forthcoming next month.
Appreciate that clarification, because I know the audience was saying 53. Okay, let's go on. Chair would like to entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept resolution number 2024-02-1201.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you all. Is there any questions or comments to Mr. Boyd? Wow, hearing none. All those in favor of approving this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next item is community agencies funding process, and Madam Clerk, ask the board, you give us the information, share with us.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. We are currently looking at ways that we can possibly reformat the community agency funding process. Earl has been having discussions with agencies that are tied to food insecurity and homelessness services and how we can kind of reformat that. We'll have more details at the next meeting, but we just wanted to give you all a brief update, and Earl might want to touch on it a little. But we just wanted to let you all know that applications will be due back by the end of March. So we do still have a little time that we can talk about this at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah,
Mr.
I mean,
Coffey?
I don't want to necessarily get into it too much, take too much time tonight. And would really like to start discussing it more in depth next time. But we normally send that out around this time, so didn't want tonight's meeting to go by without acknowledging that we've not sent those community agency applications out. We've not notified any of those users yet. Really, what we've talked about, and I see Magistrate Sleeper in the back, we've met a couple times and talked with Mr. Blevins about a better way to do that. There's a lot of those agencies, like the food pantry, for example, they come to all 3 of us, and United Way back there being 4. And so maybe there's a better way to do it and so that's what we're investigating. We think that we do have some good ideas. We're meeting again Wednesday to follow up, and so hopefully we can have something on the table by the next meeting.
Thank you, sir. Next item is Resolution 2024-02-1202, IT surplus. Ms. Rader?
Thank you, Mayor. These are some items that IT has that they are going to surplus through Gov Deals. We're just asking for your approval of the list.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Any questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve the surplus items?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2024-02-1202.
Thank you, ma'am.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
No.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Resolution passes. Next item is Resolution 02-1203, cemetery buyback. I have a problem with that word. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Rader?
Monty and Lana Owens are requesting that the city buy back, so I think there's 4 plots in Bellevue Cemetery in the amount of $3,300.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-02-1203.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of this resolution being passed, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, thank you. Resolution 02-1204, KLC contract. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. This contract is for the KLC training that you all will be receiving tomorrow. It's $750 for the 3-hour training.
So if we don't pass this, we don't have to be trained tomorrow, right? Is that what you say? Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2024-02-1204.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And this was the training that was canceled back due to the
Yes.
bad weather, right? Not anything, okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, we're pay for the training for tomorrow's 3-hour workshop, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you all. Oh, that workshop have to be open to the public since we're all going to be in attendance? Remind everybody of that. Not that you have to come, but you're welcome to come, right? Okay, it's about our form of government. Next item, 02-1205, the renaming of Boffman Avenue Extension. Yes, ma'am.
William McCanley submitted a request to the city that we rename Boffman Avenue Extension to Emma's Way in October of 2023. At that time, staff had determined that all the criteria for the renaming had been met, and the commission passed a resolution to begin the procedure of the renaming, which required a 60-day period for other suggestions on the renaming. That 60-day period has since expired and no other suggestions were received, so we're asking to proceed with the renaming to Emma's Way.
Thank you, ma'am.
I move that we approve Resolution 2024-02-1305.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I just think it's good to clarify for the citizens, we're not renaming Boffman Avenue. We're just renaming the extension by the shopping mall.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Somebody want to describe that location?
It's to the west of Fourth Street.
Yes.
And there's no, next between the car wash and the bank, but there's a small section through there. There's no addresses on it.
Yeah.
Which I think made the transition a lot, it makes the transition a lot easier.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir, for that clarification. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. We're down to the city manager's report. Mr. Coffey.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. We would have, starting at the beginning, most of you have seen the work in front of Chick-fil-A related to the gas line. That was the gas company, Kinder Morgan, out there doing work. We've met with those folks. We had hoped to have them here tonight. They canceled that. They had a conflict occur. We're hoping to get them back at the end of the month to the commission meeting. We wanted to be able, for them to be able to address what the issue was for them, or at least to talk about whether or not the line was safe, or exactly what was going on out there. I know we had received a lot of those questions, and so we won't try to answer those tonight, other than to say their suggestion to us is that the environment's safe, and that anything that has been done out of the abundance of caution. And so we'll allow them to come back in 2 weeks and address the commission further. We have a list of events. February 13th, tomorrow, is a workshop from 1 to 4. The streetscape ribbon cutting is at 4 p.m. on February 17th. The events are starting at noon. February 26th is the regular commission meeting. February 28th is Kelsey Day in Frankfurt. We will have a schedule for that day. If you're one of the ones that had suggested that you would go, we'll have that organized this week for you. And March 4th will be the COVID Memorial Day, and we'll have that organized also in the next few days. We will make that announcement at the next commission meeting and do a press release following that. We will make an effort to locate a place to plant a tree right now. I think that from the feedback I got, in the preferred location would probably be Michael Smith Park, kind of that area. And so, but we'll confirm that for you at the next meeting. The facility use agreements with the school district was intended, I've had that on there for a while. And just to clarify that, we have allowed the new superintendents time in their roles to get acclimated. And so we've not put pressure on that to get on their calendars, on their radars, but we are following that up now, so that happens over the next couple months as part of the regular spring budget process, really, for us. It would be akin to a joint agreement to allow them to operate in parks and vice versa. So the city's Parks and Rec uses like Perryville Elementary School, for example, and then Tolliver Elementary School. And so what we'd like to do is just confirm for the public at large that the city and the schools do work together on facilities, that frankly is very common. It's the common taxpayer for those facilities. And so if the city can provide something through a park that serves the community broadly, and a school can take advantage of that, we welcome that. That just simply keeps the same taxpayer from paying for two pieces of infrastructure. So that is an important agreement over time because it confirms for the citizen what our governments are doing. But it has been slowed because of the changeover in the school district and my absentee, honestly, in the fall too. So, but we'll circle back to that and make sure that's done. The KLC Certified City of Ethics. We had talked about this once before, and I think I had confused it, and we're going to bring it back up to you tonight if it's something you all want to pursue. I'm asking for direction on that. The key for this is not that it's as simple as passing a resolution and getting a certificate. There's a lot of training that comes along with this. It is a commitment of your time. It is a commitment of staff's time. Our management team, for example, would need to participate, and so it is not an insignificant volume of effort. Notwithstanding, I do think I see the value in it, and certainly we have our local ethics ordinance that we comply with, but this ratifies publicly that this is something we're aware of and that we pay attention to it. And so the total cost, by the time all said and done, is probably a commitment of time, but also probably in the neighborhood of $4,000 to $5,000 investment by the city in order to get the label. And we would like your all's feedback on whether or not it's something you want to pursue. If it is, we can bring it back in a couple weeks and bring you more detail. A head nod for tonight would be enough. It's not necessarily ready for a vote or anything like that, but I don't want to necessarily pursue it unless you all want to. It is a lot of work for Ashley, not necessarily. She's the one that's going to have to coordinate it and keep track of the training hours and whatnot.
How many hours of training? I couldn't figure it out from all the 6 pages.
Did you, Ashley, can you answer that?
But yeah.
It's a
maybe-
minimum number of hours per individual, and I want to say it's not like 4, it's more like 8,
Yeah, I think 12.
from what I remember. And mine's coming from what was verbalized to me, not necessarily from Ashley, but from the folks at KLC when I talked about it before.
Do we get any benefit, like, off of insurance, or what are the benefits? Are there any like that? Probably not. Not
We can
sure.
investigate that. I'm not aware of
I
any.
don't know.
It's a certificate that we
Right.
can, it's an overt act to demonstrate to the community that we're trained up. It's a
Right.
confirmation that you've walked through your ethics ordinance, that that you're trying, right? Like, it's an external certificate, more so, because, I mean, we review the ethics ordinance internally ourselves as
Yeah.
part of our training anyway.
Yeah, I like to consider it as one of those things you do as a preventive
Right.
method, a way of preventing things from happening, and also for the commission, but for staff, but also for the, excuse me, for our ethics committee members as well, would be, to me, be requested to be at some of that training. They have ethics committee training anyway, but I think it'd be important to include them as well. Anytime we do training like this, if we can get us as commission, but also staff and volunteers trained, it's, to me, it's just going to prevent things from happening.
Okay. So as long as there's no objections, then what we'll do is bring it back in 2 weeks, and we will answer those questions and be prepared to answer any others that we can foresee, if that's the direction y'all want to go.
Well, and the other thing I thought about is that if there's not a limit to the number of participants for this set fee, that we invite our sisters and brothers up in county government to partake of some of the training along with us, if
It
it's
is.
appropriate.
It is an extra $150 outside of the body, the commission. So each additional person, it's $150
Outside of the commission?
It's the way I understand the
wow.
language in here.
You'll take care of that, won't you, Steve?
Yeah.
You got it.
What, you saying for our ethics committee would be an additional $150 per person?
The way I'm reading it, it says
Oh.
the base pay, the $500 is for the board, and then $150 per session for additional employees.
Oh, then you just said $500, and I thought he said $5,000.
I did too.
What I was talking about is when you
Put all those
speculate
people-
on what the 150 means and you total up
okay,
the number of
okay, all right,
sessions,
okay.
then you're going to spend somewhere close to that number, probably.
Okay, so $5,000 might get all the staff done.
Right.
But the invitation was good, Mayor. Connie might want to take advantage of it. And do you think we'll have time tomorrow to answer some of these questions when Morgan's here? TLC?
Yeah.
She may know, and
Yeah.
if we can get to her in time, she may be prepared to answer that tomorrow, yeah.
Okay.
But we,
good.
regardless, we'll be prepared to answer it in 2 weeks, since it seems like it's a positive and something y'all want to do, or at least interested in.
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor. And yeah, I'd want to ask her what exact time commitment, what exact timeline. We might want to explore it after budget season. So just
Yep.
up to everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We will be scheduling the homeless forum follow-up. We have worked with Mr. Blevins and others, trying to understand what we heard at the forum and trying to put that into a succinct reaction or what things the city commission can focus on in order to impact what we learned at that initial forum. I think the positive thing is the county's got a homeless task force that they've assembled. So what we will do is, as we schedule that forum, we'll try to take all that in and be prepared to discuss what our recommended reaction to the city commission will be from that. And so we'll work with the chief and Chief Gray and develop a shorter presentation for that forum. But please anticipate a follow-up date this week. We couldn't get it set just yet, but we will have it. It will be before March 11th. It'll be before that week. It'll be probably on a Tuesday night or something, Wednesday night again.
Thank you, that sounds good.
Okay.
I think the other part of that meeting is to be, there were people, and I think some organizations who could not make that one meeting, so this is a second attempt to get them to come and give some input. And also, I'd like to hear a follow-up report from the Women's Center activity that we had here recently. But thank you for that.
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
One question, Earl. Going back to the top, Kinder Morgan is supposed to make a presentation, tell us what they found. Is there any anticipated opening day for that road?
They have to repair it this time of year with that clay material that they have to put around that line. I'm sure it's wet. I'm sure it's going to take a while to compact that. Conditions will have to be right, so I don't want to speculate on what that would be. I don't want to say,
Okay.
because I will be wrong.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner, for that question, though. Good question. Let's move on then. It's our time for our second hear of the public. At this juncture in our meeting, folks can be recognized to come to speak to us again, this time about just about anything, as long as it pertains to city business, things that the city commission has the legal right to partake of. So the items not on the agenda that you'd like to share with the city commission, are there any takers tonight? Seeing and hearing none, let's move along then. Commissioner comments? Seeing and hearing none? I almost got there, didn't I?
I just wanted to recognize, I forgot at the beginning, Commissioner Cunningham passing away. I forgot about
Oh,
saying that, just acknowledging that as a commissioner.
You said a second person. She said a
Yeah.
second person, did she? Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Peak. Anyone else? Yeah. Let's go along. Let's move right along then. Wow. Is that clock working back there? Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Next item on the agenda is the payment of bills. Commissioners, is there a motion on paying of our bills? No motion to pay the bills? Wake up. Okay.
Do it anyway.
I'll make a motion to approve the bills in the amount of $1,494,542.13.
I'll second.
Thank you, ladies. Any questions?
I have a question, and you can probably, Lusk Mechanical for unit repairs, what is that, do you know?
That is HVAC work at the old federal building.
Okay.
Yes, they're a installer for Train, so anytime we have a new unit installed, that Lusk is usually the installer on those. So I think they did a repair, not sure, it might be that one, but they also
Could
did
also
an
be a
install
Jenny
at
Rogers.
parking garage as well.
Oh, yep.
So
This is PF, so yeah.
Other questions or comments? All those in favor of paying our bills, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say likewise. Thank you, the motion carries. Financial update, Ms. Compton?
Okay, so in your packet, and this will be available on the city, not this particular slide, this is just so the public has something to look at while I'm talking. But the financial update that you have in your packet will be available on our website tomorrow at some point, when I get it up there. It's about 8 pages that covers each of our funds or most of our funds in a little detail. It does go into more detail for the general fund and for the utility fund, because those are the 2 largest funds that we have. And tonight, I was just going to cover general fund and utility fund in a little bit of detail for the public and for the update. The packet starts out with a cover page of your appropriations, because that's what is budgeted. We budget appropriations, which are also expenses. And it's just a comparison to budget, and then also a comparison to last fiscal year. Just to see where we were at last fiscal year in our budget cycle, and then also comparison dollar for dollar if we're over or under last year, and how that wound up. Total revenues for the general funds year-to-date, this is as of December 31st, 2023, were $11.8 million. The biggest category of that is your licenses and fees, which is that big blue section on the pie chart, which is covered by your occupational tax license. Your second largest category is your property taxes, which is that green section. As most people are aware, property tax bills came out in October-ish and have been due. You get a little bit of a discount if you paid it early. I think those are usually typically due by the end of December, so we collect the significant majority of our property taxes in that period. Total, that was about 1.7 million. Occupational taxes were 8.9. Penalties and forfeitures is that little tiny reddish column, which we have collected so far $3,500. That's never a large category. Our service revenue, we have collected about $570,000. That's right around 50% of our budget. Other recurring revenue, $292,000. That includes a lot of miscellaneous things. We have some school officer revenue, insurance proceeds, investment revenue. And then your last large category is your intergovernmental revenue, where we've collected $213,000, and we're right at 46% of our budget. The empty section that it is hard to see on this pie chart due to the lighting, was for a potential bond issuance, which we have not needed year to date. So we have not collected any on it. Overall, though, your revenues are very close to 50% of your budget, which is where you should be at December, other than taxes, property taxes, which will be ahead for the year at this point. Your expenses for the year. So this chart just kind of aligns this year and last year of property or of departmental expenses for the general fund. And the numbers atop, which seeing now are just non-readable back here, but total expenses for the year as of December 31st for your general fund are $14.8 million. The budget was 28.3, so you're right at halfway there on your budgeted expenses, slightly over that. Compared to last fiscal year, you do have some variations in expenses. There are a couple departments that are over last year for which they were budgeted higher. They're known, and we have one has spent significantly less. Your last category of public works, there were some health insurance costs last year that they've not experienced this year, and that unfortunately does impact their budgets. And briefly, we'll talk about utility funds. Utility fund revenue to date. Revenue to date is $12.6 million. A significant portion of that is non-operating revenue, which is that second set of columns. So for the folks out here looking, the columns represent the first set is your operating revenue, your second set is your non-operating revenue, the third is your operating expenses, your fourth is debt service, and your last is capital. The blue column represents your budget, and the yellow column represents your actual totals. So operating revenue, you've collected about half of your year-to-date total revenue. I've gotten out of order here. At about 5.7 million. Your non-operating revenue is 6.8 million. We did issue that bond anticipation note in October, which is the most significant portion of that. There is some interest and some smaller miscellaneous items that are included in that. Your operating expenses total 4.4 million, which is 49% of the budget. And then your debt service is right at 50%. It's right on track for their debt service schedules. And then your capital budget, it is very much under budget at this point in time. That's the utility fund has several projects that just got wrapped up capital-wise and some that are going to be starting soon. So in total, expenses for the utility fund were 7.6 million as of December 31st. So overall, I think the message to take away from our financial position, especially at December 31st, and especially compared to the last couple fiscal years where we did see some significant increases in revenue compared to budget, is we don't see that. We're really right on track to where we budgeted. So I think all of our department heads know that it's important to review their budgets, and they're good about asking where they're at in it. And we message that, it's really important to stay on track as to your spending habits compared to what we budgeted for.
Yeah, and to that point, over the last 4 years, say COVID, from there to now, the revenue, there was one era there where everyone claimed a bunch of net profits, or net profits was very high. Occupational taxes might have been up or down over those couple of years, depending on where people were employed. But so it seems like, to her point, that things have stabilized again, and it's back to a normal rate of projections. When you're projecting what the revenue is, it's starting to hit right where it's supposed to be again. Which, remember, we talked about the recovery and when that would happen a couple of years ago. Some of you will. There was a lot of speculation on when it would close back up to 100%. I'm not saying it's 100% or not 100%, but it's stable again. And so it's more of a normal view for us as staff. When we're looking at the budget, we know what to, it's a little bit more predictable now, if that helps. We have had a period of capital investment with the wastewater plant. Most folks can't see that. That was a significant expenditure. That came from money that we had bonded, and then streetscape, our Parks and Rec investment. Though the fire station was completed over those couple of years too. And so we have, as predicted, drawn down the fund balance to what we think is in a reasonable level. So we'll be talking about that over the next, in the budget process, not having that need to get going on some of that capital as we've done some of it. That was planned. So anticipate those things and coming out in conversation.
And just kind of to touch on further budget a little bit, Melanie has created for us and for the budget process a community survey to go out to ask community residents what they feel should be priorities. It will be we'll be including it with water bills because that's a good way to get a lot of community members. We're going to have it available online, and a few other ways that we will have that out to get that out to residents so that they can get their input heard. And we'll be planning a budget open house in the coming weeks for open to the community for them to ask questions and to give their input on their budget priorities for the year. And just so they can learn more about what we spend things on, why we don't spend things on certain things, right? I think that's sometimes a big question of, oh, why don't you do this? And maybe the answer is because we legally can't, or, for whatever it is, we'll be, here to answer those questions or find out the answer to the question. So that just to help to kind of get our kick started on our budget process of helping inform our citizens and getting their feedback as well. So that will be coming out in the near future.
And the goal of the survey is not to confirm what we're doing as good or bad. It's to literally find out what the public at large what their thoughts are in terms of what they think the city should be doing, that kind of approach. And so we appreciate Melanie and Lee's work on developing that survey.
Okay.
Do you guys have any questions about the update?
No, you said it would be online tomorrow.
Yes, we'll get that out online tomorrow, available.
I'll just say for me, again, Parks and Rec, I know we'll have another meeting with the county. So looking at the budget and looking at the money that we put into that, I would like to have more discussion with county about funding. Just me.
Any other questions or comments to Ms. Compton? Ms. Compton, you have the next item, revenue discussion. You want to continue?
Yes. So this is more of a kind of a wrap-up to some discussions we've had over the last couple months. If you recall, we talked a bit about, we began the kind of discussion with a change in compensation to our police and firefighters. And that kind of led to a discussion about essentially needing direction on where to go for revenue budgeting purposes. That's the result of this for me and for my purposes. So while we typically don't really start that process until the true budget process gets started, we are starting a little bit early this year. But also that change does impact the way we will plan for next fiscal year. So as we begin looking at that, some things came up. We discussed our insurance premium tax, if you recall. And during that process, a few other questions came up about our property tax process and about our alcohol tax process. And this is kind of just a wrap-up and conclusion to that conversation to give us direction in which way we need to go when budgeting revenue for the next year. So a few things that we did discuss were a potential change to the health insurance premium rate for health insurance policies. Property tax, we typically budget using the compensating rate. There's that, use that again, or a potential increase in that. We also discussed increasing or potentially increasing the alcohol premium tax rate, which is currently staggered based on the type of sale it is. So within the memo, I tried to include any questions that we had outstanding to wrap those up. One of the questions about health insurance premiums were like senior plans exempt. And after speaking to the Department of Insurance, those are considered HMO plans and they are exempt from the rate. We also had a couple questions about general fund revenue. Our property tax rates change annually. The option to increase it or use a compensating rate, that's usually decided within our budget process, but that has to be done annually. Your occupational tax rate has essentially, the rate can't be adjusted unless you adjust it down. Your franchise taxes, which is another larger group of your general fund revenue, that rate is assessed by the Department of Revenue. We don't have any control over that rate. Your insurance premium rate, we discussed quite a bit with possible suggestions to the health insurance category. And then I've included a lot more detail about the alcohol tax in the attachments because that is one rate that we do control, and it's one rate that hasn't been adjusted in since we set alcohol rates in the early 2000s. And it's justified by the expenses that it costs to, to administer is a good word, but also the enforcement of it. Thank you. And we do exceed that cost to administer and enforce it fairly significantly. So there's a suggestion of a potential update to the rate to level it out rather than have it staggered as by the drink and by the package. So there's a lot of information in that memo with the attachments, but we just kind of needed, or we wanted your feedback and your direction in how to prepare for budget season, essentially.
Yeah, so normally we would have our initial budget meetings where that process would normally start in March. We'll talk about revenue early on, usually. With me scheduled to be gone there for a few weeks in March, what we probably will do is schedule a preliminary revenue presentation, maybe even at the next commission meeting, if we can assemble the information. That way, it's in front of you to think about and make that really Monday night our kickoff to the budget process for us in terms of assembling data or assembling the actual budget sample. To her point on the alcohol, we would like to verbalize what that number is. So we spend about $1.2 million in doing enforcement for the alcohol ordinance. And right now, the rates as they were set up is generating about $700,000 in revenue. So you're spending about $500,000 more than you're taking in to do enforcement on alcohol-related issues currently. And I think Commissioner Sears was asking me specifically some of these questions, which is why we dove into that a little bit more. And we really, I don't really know why our rate was staggered across. So it's at 3% for malt beverages. It's by the drink, it's 5%. So then practically speaking, what happens is you can go to a store and buy a can of beer and you pay 3% tax, but if you do that same can of, or volume or container of alcohol at like Copper and Oak, you pay 5% tax. I don't understand why that's the case. That doesn't make a lot of sense in that they're both bricks and mortar. It's both the same. And so I don't know why you would treat that supplier differently. Does that make sense? It seems like that rate should at least be flat. It's not necessarily raising it to raise the rate, although that's what we were looking at is we had a significant payroll change mid-year, $600,000. And so what we were concerned about was going into the budget process without a way to pay for that. And so we were actively talking about the insurance or the tax rates and what they meant and how much they would be changing this year naturally, like the property tax, compensated rate, et cetera. But then as you dive into the question on the alcohol tax, it does seem like the fairness in the application of that tax, it should be at least flat. And so then when we compared our rates to other communities, what we see is about an average of 5% across the board, and where ours is staggered at 3, 4, and 5.
There are other cities that do stagger it, but it's not common.
Correct.
And they didn't have that's kind of, their answer was the same as ours, which is, well, that's how it's always been.
Correct.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that one was interesting to me.
Interesting, yeah.
Why
I think
we
at the
did that.
time, at the time, you got to remember, we started out moist.
Yeah.
And I think the way, and you know, Miss Wilma's back there in the back, I mean, I'm sure she would
Yeah.
remember as much as anybody. But I mean, we started out moist, and it was by the drink, and then as we transitioned to wet, we didn't have any stores. And so that initial, well, we don't know how much it's going to be, there was some reluctance in setting that too high, from what I recall, because we didn't want to discourage an enterprise here, from what I remember. In
Yeah.
our minds, I think that's what was being discussed at the time. I don't necessarily know that the model on alcohol really reflects that. It's more of a percentage of population. So there's a built-in demand for alcohol. And so you're going to have that part of the market, you know, whatever our population is our market share that's going to want to come to our stores regardless, right? So it's not necessarily, to me, it's more treating our restaurants that are local the same as you're treating the package stores that are local. To me, that's probably, there's some fairness there that we need to probably address. That's just the way I'm made up, though. I don't see a difference in those two enterprises.
Are we just to look at this, or do you want feedback tonight?
We'll do whatever you want. We are providing you this. We said that we would have this conversation. We wanted to bring it to conclusion. We need to project our revenue going into the fiscal year. So if there's going to be any changes, this will help us as we start the budget process. It will make our, you know, we need to know what we're looking at in terms of revenue as we start. So if you're wanting to do something to a rate, you know, we would like some indication of that so that we can be prepared. Now, the deadlines tied to each rate are important. I think the insurance premium, any change to that would have to be done in March. Property taxes in August, for example. The alcohol taxes with the budget cycle. So, I mean, there's different dates for when you do them. And so we would need some indication to make sure we're compliant with deadlines and that kind of thing. Not necessarily tonight, but definitely by the next commission meeting. We start to need a direction on if you're interested in insurance premium. If not, then we move on past that as the dates roll past.
Well, I like the way you've put it together because it shows us the potential increase in revenue based on an increase in the percent. So I think that's very helpful, especially with the alcohol stuff. Any other questions or comments on this presentation?
It sounds like, well, none of us really want to raise taxes anywhere, but the two options are to maybe look at a 1% or a very small increase on health insurance premium, and then look at this alcohol tax, I think is what is being pushed to the top here. Yeah, I did bring up the alcohol tax. I don't think it's fair. It should be more of a, should be across the board, basically.
Well, if we're spending $250,000 more to,
We're spending about $500,000 more. And the last annual report that we did is attached. The FY '23 report indicated that we spent $1.2 million enforcing alcohol and collected $700,000 from the fees. So in essence, the property taxes are paying for, or occupational taxes are paying that extra $500,000 instead of alcohol tax paying that $500,000.
Yeah, I think it makes good sense to do the flat 5% for the alcohol, as most communities do, and it's also much more fair.
Is that revenue neutral, though? Or is that,
Is it neutral?
if we raised, if we made them all the same, like in the middle somewhere, would that necessarily create any new revenue?
Oh, the alcohol rate, it would potentially, so based on a rough estimate, what I looked at, so I basically aggregated over the last couple fiscal years, how much for each category, that the 3% tax, the 4%, and the 5% we had collected. If we raised it, assuming there was no change in sales, my assumption is that a potential 2% increase in tax is not going to significantly impact the sales of local alcohol. You could potentially up to $200,000 in additional revenue. And all of that would essentially cover a bit more of the enforcement that it takes. And compared to the fiscal '23 deficit, I say deficit in quotation marks because it's not a deficit in our budget anywhere. But that's going to be higher if we don't adjust it because of the increase in cost of everything and compensation. You can only raise the rate up to the amount essentially it takes to enforce it. But also our rates would be capped at 5% based on Kentucky laws that changed in 2017-ish. So we can't raise them above 5%.
Yeah, and I think where we landed was just do all three of them at 5%. The by the drink tax is already 5%. The cities we compare to is at 5.6. The packaged spirits is for us is 4. The cities we compare to is 5.2. And then the packaged malt, the cities we compare to is 4.8, and we're at 3. So what our suggestion is just set it at 5% across the board. And you would close the gap on that $500,000 that you're upside down with enforcement just a little bit. But that would help offset, for our purposes, from a budgeting perspective, that salary increase that we just did for police and fire, or particularly on the police side, this would help absorb that without impacting our planning for the next budget year in terms of, now that we know we're coming back to a more normal budgeting process with as we've fully recovered from COVID. Certainly, when you add something like that, it makes sense to think about the revenue a little bit, which is what we've tried to talk about.
so I guess the direction from the commission to the staff is to show us some proposals about going to 5% across the board in that one, but also, I guess, show us some proposals on other possible revenue generators as well. Is that what you want to see?
I think I'm looking at it, but,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it is a lot to read
Yeah,
at once,
yeah,
so, yeah.
yeah. Any other
Yeah, I
questions or comments to Mr. Compton on this one?
I was gonna say, I personally, I need to chew on these a little bit more before I
Yeah.
make any sort of decision, so.
If we are able to do a revenue presentation, how we expect now, it's not as complete because we don't have February's numbers in it. Usually, we start with February data. But because we're going to lose a good chunk of March, we would like to get headed in a direction. And so if we can assemble a revenue presentation for the next commission meeting, this could complement that. And in other words, if we're doing something flat, then, there may be more of an emphasis to do something. But let's do it like that, and then we'll bring this memo back for the file. We won't change it. This will be the same memo you'll see next time. I don't know, unless there's information that we're missing. But we'll try to make this as part of, incorporate that memo with our revenue discussion so that you can see it and then make a decision what your starting point is.
So it'll show if we just kept revenues flat, will that be included as well?
Yes, and then, but I would caution you, March 31st is the deadline for the,
March 20th, I believe, is the deadline if you change insurance premium tax. It's 100 days prior to the end of the fiscal year. So if we adjust it, if you choose to adjust it, then we would potentially need to have a special called session to do the second reading.
Okay.
Okay.
If you don't choose to adjust it, then we'll move forward with other suggested changes or just a normal, no changes. But I think for the next meeting, we could have a couple scenarios of changes versus no changes.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
Thank
it
you,
wouldn't
ma'am.
include, like the revenue of February, it won't include.
I mean, I can include it to that date, but you're missing half a
Right.
month.
You're
And if,
missing half a month, yeah.
like, if a big check hasn't come in,
Right.
it's hard to predict exactly when some of those will trickle in the door. So I could probably update it as of the 15th, possibly a little bit later, but you wouldn't get a whole month.
Fair enough. Okay. You have the next item. Second reading of ordinance 2026.
If you all recall, we did do a budget amendment on a couple funds. Last meeting, we amended the general fund budget, the streetscape budget, the museum fund budget, and the parking fund budget, for a total of 1.5 million. So 1.5 in the general fund because those will be transfers to those other three funds. 1.1 in the streetscape fund, 15,000 in the museum fund, and 68,000 in the parking fund. The largest portion, the 1.1 in streetscapes, if you guys remember, was a timing difference. We had originally planned for some expenses to hit last fiscal year, and due to scheduling, they did not happen until this fiscal year. The museum, it's a really old building. They've had some unexpected, on the old federal building. They've had just the HVAC work and things like that just popped up. And then the parking fund has had some unexpected things with the elevator and things like that happen. But this is just the second reading of that ordinance.
Okay, the chair would entertain a motion for ordinance 2026.
Move that we approve the second reading of ordinance 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, you want to read the ordinance for us?
This is the second reading of ordinance number 2026, an ordinance amending a portion of ordinance number 2012, which established the City of Danville, Kentucky annual budget for the fiscal year 7/1/2023 through 6/30/2024 by appropriating funds for the operation of city government.
What?
And is the total $1,523,555?
Mayor, you can see on the first page in the chart that is provided on the ordinance what the revisions were. So any place there's a strike-through, you can see there was an increase of roughly $1.5 million to the general fund and about $1 million to the streetscape fund, and then some minor adjustments, roughly, well, $15,000 to the museum fund, and the parking fund had an increase of $60,000, roughly $70,000.
Okay, so the total is those four numbers, okay? Somewhere I was reading that budgets would increase in total by 1.5, but that 1.5 is just the general fund by itself.
Yeah, and maybe I wrote it in a way that is confusing, but like that 1.5 in the general fund essentially has to increase because you're giving that in smaller pots to the other budgets.
Okay.
So I guess in total, everything increased by 3.04 million. So that's just an error in my description.
That's okay, I'm just, remember, I'm not a math major, but the numbers didn't add up to me.
Well,
so-
I wasn't a math major either.
Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Cottle?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak? Mayor Atkins?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Holland?
Yes.
Commissioner Saris?
Yes.
Moving right along, resolution 2024-02-1206. Ms. Compton, you have that item as well?
Last one, and Stephen, I don't think you gave Ashley that resolution.
No, it'll be turned, you just explain what it is, and then we'll supplement it. Thank you.
Essentially, we purchase the services of Springfield Laundry. They provide us all the rugs that you see in any city building. They bring us new fresh rugs every week and clean them. They also bring things like shop towels. They even do some uniform cleanings for some particular departments. And essentially, they have agreed to lock in our price, our weekly price with them for the visits to all of our locations, which is City Hall, the meter shop, Second Street. I don't know what's on Second Street. Public Works, the new Public Works building, both fire departments, the police department, the wastewater treatment plant, the parking garage, the water treatment plant. So they come in and provide us new mats for the floors, mops, mop handles, things like that every week. And they have agreed to lock in the price on that for the next till June 2026 it'll be approximately, it'll be $28,711.28. They just wanted us to agree to that pricing. It is under our bid amount. We did attempt to contact some other folks in the area that provide similar services, but frankly, they were just all significantly more expensive to provide the same weekly service. And I think everybody is fairly happy with the Springfield Laundry service.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-02-1206.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of passage, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Compton.
You're welcome.
I was on the road tonight, right? Mr. Carrier, you're up next. Resolution 122707 and 08. Okay?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This agenda item is in relation to contract amendment number 7 to cover contract administration and resident project representation for an additional 5-month period from November 1st, 2023 through March 31st, 2024. This is essentially, this extension is related to previous discussions that I've covered in past commission meetings pertaining to material and electrical component delivery delays from the manufacturers for the project. So it takes you back to that whole COVID conversation as it relates to material delays that we've seen in the project overall. So when you have those delays, for example, in the project, on the contractor side, it may be an increase in time, but it may be a zero cost, right? But you still have to have the services of folks like HDR to serve as contract administration and resident project representation, which is essentially having somebody on site every day to help administer the contract itself and oversee the construction activities. So this will be a total increase of $71,500 to get us through March 31st, 2024, which will be the expected completion of the wastewater treatment plant Phase 1.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2024-02-1207.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Carrier?
Thank you, Mayor. This next agenda item is in regards to change order number 9 for the wastewater treatment plant, Phase 1 construction contract with Smith Contractors. Change order number 9 is a $146,976.27 increase to the contract amount. This change order is for various items, including electrical modifications, valve installation, concrete work, direct purchase order transfer of funds back to the Smith Contractors, lump sum contracting, et cetera. A direct purchase order DPO line item was overestimated, and remaining money is being moved back into the contractor's original lump sum contract. So what that boils down to is if you go over to the 4th page in your packet, you'll see the change in contract prices in the various change order numbers 32 through 45 there. So you either have a $0 amount or you have a plus value or you have a minus value, which would be expressed in parentheses. So you do all that math and you come all the way down to the bottom of the page. So it shows a difference net of $146,976.27. So really, if you recall back in September of 2021, we broke out a large majority of the contract out in what's called a direct purchase order agreement, right? And that was allowing the city to save money on taxes on materials like pumps, valves, concrete, stone, and so on and so forth. So back then, the city actually saved about $330,000 in taxes by doing that exercise, right? So in doing that exercise, the contractor estimates a schedule of values over there in that column. And if it comes back at the end of the day, like what we're seeing here, if there was an overestimation of like pipe or some type of materials, that money actually gets transferred back into the original lump sum contract. We're just essentially bookkeeping. It's an exercise in bookkeeping is really all we're doing. And if you do all the math and the pluses and the minuses based on that sheet that I directed you to just a second ago, you actually have a net contract decrease of $357.73. So.
I will say, let me say this too, I think the legislature's making an effort to make contracts like this enables, so long as it's a municipal contract, that would be a tax exempt purchase, that the contractors can purchase that using our information so that we don't have to go through this exercise again. So if we're going to buy a pump that's $100,000, we're not going to pay sales tax on that. So we process it in this way so that the city doesn't have to pay that tax. And yes, it's confusing. It's confusing for the contractor, it's confusing for city staff, but it's certainly confusing for the citizen that just sees this change orders going back and forth. And so I will suggest that the state's trying to fix this so that this exercise, understanding that most municipal utilities have started going down this road, because it is a significant savings to avoid the sales tax in the contract.
We appreciate that. Okay. Other comments or questions? Need a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-02-1208.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, Mr. Currier. Now we saved Mr. Morgan for last. And it's, clock says 5 minutes to 7.
Yep.
It's not what my watch says, but I guess hope mine. Okay, let's go, Mr. Morgan. You got 5 items.
Thank you all. We'll move quickly, as quickly as we can. But please stop me throughout this if you have any questions or anything you all want to talk about in more depth. We have a lot going on right now in particular, and, you know, I'm going to try to go through all this, and it took me a whole day to kind of figure out what all I was working on, what to include in this presentation. So if there's things I'm missing, call me out on it. We'll talk about it. So first is just kind of some general public works updates. We have moved into our new offices down at the Public Works Garage. Our public works staff have. They're enjoying their space. They got in just in time before the snow back around Martin Luther King Day, and were able to work out of those offices during that week-long storm event. So it's worked out well for them. And then otherwise, the usual drainage repairs. I've got a picture here of actually work they did on 2nd Street outside of their office there that was required as part of the work going on. The Memorial Plaza, as you see next door, we're making good progress. Hopefully, we'll be done in the next few weeks, at least with the hardscape part of the work. We can get the sculpture installed and have it kind of officially opening up. We still need to do some work on the signage and the memorial plaques and things like that, but at least gets the construction aspect of the work complete so we can clean it up and get it looking nice. Tree planting, we had our annual tree planting that we coordinate with the tree committee and the KU grant that we get for trees each year. We planted 50 trees. I have some pictures in here. We planted a few in our usual park locations along trails and other areas, but this is the first year we actually reached out into a neighborhood and put door hangers out and asked folks if they wanted street trees planted in front of their house between the sidewalk and the road. This year we did, the tree committee, we looked at different neighborhoods. We did Colonial Heights and Candlewood this year. I think we were able to work with about 10 property owners. We had a good response, but we kind of knew this would be a problem. A lot of areas have so many utilities in that strip now, it's hard for us to plant trees in it. But we were able to find a few places that we could do it. I have a good picture here coming up on a later slide. And we're going to do that in future years. I think next year our plan is to go to Southgate, that area, down off of Daniel Drive, and see if we can do the same kind of program there. Maintenance contracts. We have a couple items on the agenda tonight. We're renewing contracts from last year, but we also have our mowing contract is out for bids right now. I think bids are due February 20th, and our planting material, so our flowers, that bid is also due February 20th. And just to give you all, a warning about that, our supplier for how many years had Red Barn been 20 years? Our supplier for 20 years is not doing flowers this year. So we are finding a new supplier through this bid process. So we're hoping we can meet the same standard that we expect every year. I mean, that's one of the, we get a lot of compliments about our flowers. So we're going to, if we may have hiccups this year, just as a heads up, but we're going to do our best to keep the quality the same. I have some pictures here. There on the left is a drainage project out in Indian Hills. The middle picture is some trees that were planted in Colonial Heights. And the picture on the right is the new sidewalk along Maple Avenue that was completed just in the past few months. And all this work has been done by city staff. So there's a sidewalk on St. Mildred's Court. We partnered with Center College. They had a very large tree in front of one of their properties that needed to be removed. So we partnered with them. They paid for the tree removal, and then we put the sidewalk back, which was, they spent a lot of money on that tree removal because it was up in electric lines. So it was a pretty big project, but we were able to help them out with the sidewalk installation. And then the Memorial Plaza on the right, that's pictures from today. You can see the progress we're making on the pavers to get those installed. Cemeteries. And this is something we need to get together and talk about. The cemetery committee would like to have a workshop with the commission. I've listed some topics here that we kind of need to talk about as a group. That's been a while since we've done that. We need to talk about expansion, especially at Bellevue and even at Hilldale as we start to fill up these spaces. Rules and regulations, the committee's been looking over those for the past year, kind of going through it line by line and going in circles a little bit, but we're trying to land on where we want, we want to make some changes to rules and regulations, but also reinforce the current rules and regulations and guide us on how to implement those. We want to go revisit the committal shelter discussion after we had the bid last year that was higher than we expected, and see if we can revisit that. And then just general improvement projects. Are there, as we go into the budget process, are there other things that we can include in the capital budget as far as fence or roads or those kind of improvements? But we'll try to schedule that. I think March would probably be a good time for that. And we can get that meeting set up. Now, projects, we got downtown streetscape. So we're, for all intents and purposes, we have reached substantial completion, which means they're done, other than us going back over the project and telling them what else they need to fix. That meeting will probably happen the next couple of weeks. We're trying to set that up with our consultants, our designers right now. Last week, they were finishing up installing the sensor loops for your traffic signals. That's what all the cutting in the roads and all that mess that they were making last week was involved with that. Those are installed now, so the signals should start working correctly. But we'll keep an eye on them because there'll probably be some tweaks we need to make as it gets used. Like I said, punch list walkthrough occur in the next couple of weeks. Their landscape subcontractor came through in the last couple of weeks and replaced the dead and non-viable trees but that's something that the contractor is required to do as part of his contract. That those additional work that's going on with those trees is not something the city's having to pay for. That's just part of their contract. And like we talked about earlier, the ribbon cutting is this Saturday, February 17th at 4 o'clock. I probably need to start breaking this out into multiple slides so the text doesn't get so small. Parks Master Plan implementation. We're trying to schedule a joint city-county meeting, and we were shooting for late February, early March. Have we had any luck with that? So we'll keep trying to get everyone together. It's a big group to get in one room and get a meeting scheduled. So we're struggling with that a little bit, but we really want to get everybody back together. We want to provide you all with that list, that menu of potential projects and cost estimates, so we can move some projects forward that you all in the county are interested in funding. Jenny Rogers improvements, phase 1. That project should be complete already, but we have had a really difficult time getting the HVAC system to work in there, the existing HVAC system. As we turn on new things, old things break. That's happened 2 or 3 times to us already. But we've got a new boiler installed, like this week is getting installed, and we're hoping that will get the heat turned on in the building, which will then allow the contractor to finish the project, which includes the floors, finished woodwork, things that don't need to be installed if it's cold in the building. We met with the schools last week that are occupying the child care side, and they're a little frustrated with the timeline, but they also are looking at a really solid opening this summer that lines up more with their school year anyway. So that's our goal at this point, is to really do a big grand opening this summer. And even on the side the other side of the building that we are occupying, and the common area in the middle, we're hoping to get all those kind of renovations done this summer and have a big grand opening. Michael Smith Park Phase 1 is going really well. It's on schedule, still on schedule for May 1st. They hit pause here for a few weeks with the weather, but I think we'll see them back out there soon. All their equipment that they're getting delivered in is on schedule, being delivered. I think a lot of splash pad equipment is already in their warehouse, ready to go. So that's definitely looking well. And then aquatics expansion, we'll present that to you all at the joint city-county meeting. We've taken that design a little bit further. We have some more solid cost estimates that we can present for Jenny Rogers, but also some additional numbers of renovations at Buddy Davis, and also talk about some other splash pads. So. Here's some pictures of the Jenny Rogers renovations. On the left is one of the old bathrooms that has the new sinks and along the wall there. That's a new wall. That was a change order we did a couple of months ago, where we got in there and had to replace all the drain lines. So we had to tear the old wall out and put in a new wall. And then on the right is a picture from inside one of the classrooms in the child care wing that shows new sinks and new plumbing inside the classroom. These are pictures from down at Michael Smith Park. The one on the left is the preparation of the pad for the splash pad. They've got the sub base installed, and then on the right is the new walls that were installed that we'll put new signage on that will display Michael Smith Park. Wayfinding signage, that bid has been awarded and that contract is ongoing. We've approved all the submittals to get that fabrication started, and I talked to them today, and they said that they plan to have those signs installed in April. So we will keep you all updated, and that's moving along well as too. We've got a lot going on this spring. We've talked about, we have a lot of projects that are going to be finishing up this spring and summer, which is good. I'm spending way too much money right now because everything's coming to a head at the same time. So we'll wrap that up and get ourselves into a more stable budget place here this summer, hopefully. Stormwater program, and I'll say this, the stormwater program's been a little bit on pause as we've had so much work going on other places. We are close to filling that position you all approved for us last year in the budget. We've been going through that hiring process, and I think hopefully in the next month or so, we'll get that position filled, and then we'll have the capacity to move a lot of these projects forward. And then the stormwater manual update, that's been on hold because we're getting a new permit from the state, which may have additional requirements in it. So our consultant, thankfully to them, they reached out and said, hey, we don't want to write this twice for you all. We don't want to do it once and then turn around and have to do it again after they give us the new requirements. So let's just hit pause until those come out. Sub-basin F assessment, we should have some projects to look at in April, which I think will drive some of our budgeting decisions. Hopefully we get them in time to do that. And also may drive some decisions we need to make about the stormwater utility rate. We talked about revenue a little bit earlier, but the stormwater rate hasn't been changed since we implemented it in 2007. It's been $3.36 for 16 years, which means that it was initially created to have some room in it for capital projects, to borrow money and to pay off bond on capital projects. Well, that room is gone now. Our operations have caught up to our revenue. So if we don't do something soon, our operations are past our revenue, but also we will have no money to do any projects. The good thing is coming out of this assessment, we should have tangible projects that we can tie that rate increase to, which I think makes it a little easier to stomach if we say, hey, this is going to pay for this particular project. Street and sidewalk projects. We've started our Vision Zero safety action plan. We've had some public engagement. We've got a survey out. We've had a public meeting that went really well. I think we had about 20 people at that meeting. We've been meeting with our group, our safety action group here in City Hall. That's just different stakeholders from the community. The data collection's done, data assessment's done. So we're getting in the same spot with it. We're getting ready to start looking at some projects, which we need to do quickly because there's going to be another grant application cycle come out here in probably the next month or so that we need to be in time for that grant cycle because we'll be ahead of everybody else if we can do it this year. So we'll have an opportunity to apply for a sizable grant that I think KYTC will help us with the match on. So we've got a big opportunity that we need to grab. Boffin Avenue sidewalks, the grant's been awarded. The design is nearly complete. We met about that a couple weeks ago. We looked at probably a 90% design. They're going to take that the rest of the way. And then we'll have a public meeting out near, probably at Hogshead again, where we'll go over the design and talk to individual property owners about how they'll be impacted. It'll be really targeted, especially to the folks who live on the north side, that the sidewalk will be going across a further property, because touching driveways and different things, moving mailboxes, items like that we'll really need to talk to the property owners about. But I do think, after talking to KYTC and the folks that manage this grant, this project's probably not going to get built until spring of next year, 2025. When I initially said I wanted to build it this summer, they told me that was not going to happen with the paperwork requirements that they have. So they told me to look more towards spring of 2025, which I think Springfield's rebuilding their downtown here soon with a TAP grant that they got awarded in 2016. So hopefully we won't take that long. We won't take 8 years to get something implemented. So. Trail system, we finally got approval from our grant office to bid out the Stanford Avenue pedestrian refuge island. So it is out for bid now. We'll be getting bids on that in early March and hopefully have that to you all at the first meeting in March to award a bid. And then we continue to work with the Trails Alliance as through the comprehensive plan process to get their Trails Master Plan included. I don't think I mentioned on here, we should be paving, the trail we built last year over by near Corporate Drive, along the Coel property line, from the new trailhead off of Lebanon Road. We're going to try to pave that this spring. That was part of that process, is we were going to build it last year and then come back within a year or so and pave it. So that's something that we'll be trying to get out pretty soon and get done. Then some miscellaneous projects. The police department renovation, we have a pretty good design there, probably 70% design. And we have some cost estimates from that, which frankly are pretty high. So we're going to look at that together. We're going to meet with the designer, see what we can do to bring those down. But we want to have some solid numbers to you all for the budget process to talk about next year. When we talk internally, that's looking at next year. That's probably the big general fund project that right now the only one we'll probably bring forward, unless there's some park stuff that you all want to prioritize. But internally, that's like the big general fund project that we need to look at if we're looking at capital projects for 2025. The Land and Water Conservation Grant, so playgrounds are being installed at Cowan Street Park and Jackson Park. They started Cowan Street last week, and I got a picture from Tommy today that Jackson Park started being installed. So that's really cool. We're going to have this spring. We're going to have 3 new playgrounds in our park system, which is great. And two of the 3 are grant funded. And then we got sod installed on the lower large soccer field at Millennium Park there next to the concession stand. That field was in really rough shape, so we've installed sod there last week. Thankfully, we've gotten all this rain, and that should take hold. And the soccer community is very excited about it. We met out there Friday and looked at it together, and they're very excited. Which is the picture on the left is hold on, I go back. The picture there is, that's the new playground at Cowan Street going in, and then these pictures on the left is the sod at Millennium Park, and then on the right is Jackson Park from today. And then I put on here some partner projects that we're working on, just internally trying to keep these moving. Continue to work with planning and zoning on the comprehensive plan. I think they're back on. Bluegrass Ad has filled the position they have a planner now that's working on our comprehensive plan for us, so we should have some draft goals pretty soon, goals and objectives. Working with the EDA on the KPDI grant. The purchase contract has been executed, and we're helping them work through the survey and environmental assessment parts of our due diligence right now to get that. Hopefully, we can get that sale closed here fairly soon. We're actually the city has an EPA brownfield grant that does environmental assessments. We're actually utilizing that to pay for the environmental assessments, so that's saving the EDA a little bit of money. And then one thing we've been trying to communicate out with our downtown businesses and property owners, we're trying to transition from carts to dumpsters in our downtown core with Republic. That's a project we're kind of leaning on Republic to do because they're doing the implementation. But this has been a project. Earl, how long has the city been talking about doing this? Taking the carts off of Main, 20 years, 15 years? And it's way, way, way more complicated than you realize to do. Every time you try to do it, you're like, no, here's 100 problems, so we're going to stop. We decided just to lower our heads and do it, and we'll just squash problems as they arise. And it will be difficult for us. It will be, and we want our downtown folks to know if they have issues, let us know. Let's work on it, let's fix it, because they may have some problems that come up once they switch. But yeah, that is all I had. So do you all have any questions or anything particular, anything I forgot?
Sound like you've been busy in a good way. Man. Any questions or comments from my fellow commissioners?
No, there's a lot of good things I was going to ask you about, so now they're on here and I'll have to ask you. But I had heard about the transition from the carts to I've heard some comments this week. So.
Yeah, and through that process too, we're going to clean up our billing of our downtown garbage collection. That's something that's just kind of been there always. When we started billing for garbage collection 20, 30 years ago, that downtown collection was a 6-day-a-week collection of curbside, but that hasn't been audited well, and I don't think the folks that even have that pay the bill. That's the thing. I think we're uncovering more problems than we're solving as we go, but we'll get there. There are problems we need to solve, so we're just going to keep working on it.
Short of you installing rear doors, back doors for businesses, right?
Yeah, that's part of the issue. Some of our businesses don't have back doors, so they're having, we don't want them to have to carry garbage bags,
Yeah.
200 yards to get to a dumpster, around all the way around the block. So and some of this too, and we're going to have to ask some folks to work together, because a lot of our downtown businesses, and property owners, the only way that downtown functions if there's cooperation between property owners. It's too tight to just not work together. So it's the same kind of story of always when we do things downtown.
Well, and in a very positive way, Josh, so keep up the good work. That was number one. I said you had 5 items, right?
So the first item is the renewal of the beautification contract with Divine Creations. We awarded that contract last year in the amount of $78,885, and it has a clause in it that allows for renewal for 1 year if both parties agree, and we would like to renew that contract with them.
So restate the amount, please.
$78,885,
Okay,
and that is an annual contract.
good. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2024-02-1209.
Thank you, ma'am.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments?
How much was the contract last year?
Well, that's what it was like. We're just renewing it for the same amount.
Just renewing it for the same exact amount?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you all. Josh, the next item?
Yes, that's same thing for our cemetery maintenance contract. We awarded that bid last year to Cutting Edge Lawn Service in the amount of $168,000. It has the same provision in it. We'd like to renew that contract as well.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-02-1210.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Questions or comments?
Does this include all 3 cemeteries?
Yes, and it includes Bellevue and Hilldale. The other cemeteries are included in the general mowing contract that covers
Okay.
everything else in the city.
Okay. No comment? Oh, who's leaning toward the mic?
Stretching.
Okay, all those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Josh?
Yes, the next item is a grant application with the Federal Highway Administration. It's a RAISE grant. This project, we actually applied for this grant last year at this time. We did not receive it. These grants are extremely competitive. I think there was one in Kentucky last year was awarded, I believe, to Louisville. So we're asking to reapply. We actually did a debrief with FHWA to see why we weren't awarded. There's 8 merit criteria. You have to reach the high level in 6 to even be considered, like to pass on to the funding source. We were high in 4 of the 8, so I need to get 2 of the criteria up to high that were medium, and I think we could do that. We need to get a little more data. I think it's what we were lacking last year. So the Vision Zero plan we're working on that's been collecting data will help us with this process to get some more data included in the application. So I think, this is the kind of grant that you apply for many years before you end up getting it. So this is year 2 for us. So we're just going to keep applying, keep making it better. The total project budget is $3.5 million. It's the reconstruction of South 2nd Street, all the way from downtown to its connection to 4th Street. So it'd be widening, curb and gutter, drainage, sidewalks, just reconstruction of 2nd Street to a modern, safe street. Which would require a 20% match, which would obligate the city for $700,000. It could be budgeted out of municipal road aid fund, but also this is something that we probably wouldn't have to budget until the FY26 budget, even if we were awarded this grant, because the award wouldn't happen till probably later this year into maybe early next year. So that's would be the city's obligation at this time would be $700,000 if we were awarded the grant.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, sir. That would be major, to widen South 2nd Street. Wow. Any other questions or comments from the commission? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-02-12-11.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Josh, your last one.
So hopefully, I saved the most painful for last, so everybody was really tired. Downtown streetscape change order number 5, which I am hoping will be our last change order, fairly certain it will be. So this is, when we initially started, we knew we were gonna run into a lot of things that were unknown throughout the project. Coal chutes, drainage, different, we'd have to redesigned a lot of the project as we went, as far as how the water drained off the sidewalk, how ramps were connected together. So we discussed early on with Pace that we would keep track of those changes from a time and material standpoint, and we would reconcile that later on in the project. When they reached out to me in December and said, we've got that number ready, it's $382,600.26, I've almost fainted. That was much higher than I anticipated it being. So I said, get me all of the documentation you could possibly get me for the work that's included in that. So they did. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of work. As in your packet, I was able to get that to you all today, I think, that goes through each. There's 16 different kind of breakdowns that they provided that shows the hourly rates and everything and the work that was included in each item. But just an overview so the community can hear, I included that list. It's, they asked for the number of coal chutes. They didn't give me that number yet. I would estimate we repaired possibly 40 to 50 coal chutes. We thought there was like 5 at the start of the project, but a lot of them had been capped over previously and the concrete was poured over top of. So once we removed the old concrete, and they had just used like wooden boards and things like that the sidewalk was setting on. So there was a lot of that kind of work throughout. Roof drain and sump pump drain connections. So as they did demolition, they would find drains. They would have to run out to the new drainage system. They installed over 3,000 feet of pipe that they were not anticipating to install, which is a significant amount of pipe. Lead water line replacement, and Marshall left. Marshall could have spoke to this a little bit better than I can. There's a lead line replacement program that's going on right now through the federal government that's requiring lead lines to be repaired, or at least planned to be repaired over the next few years. So as we found those throughout the project, we worked with the contractor to install either a sleeve that could be utilized later on to make those repairs, or make the repair at that time. So that's included. Old electrical boxes that we found under the sidewalk and things like that we had to replace throughout. The state kept kind of changing our electrical conduit requirements as we went, so we were making those changes a lot. You'll see that in that documentation a ton. There's just new conduit required by the state. We found some sewer lateral connections that we had to replace and repair as we went. A couple of things that we decided, the city changed, not due to found conditions. We reworked the McDaniel entrance after it was built. We moved that slightly to widen it because it was very difficult to get in and out of. And then the initial bid did not include the west side of South Third. So everything up against the Farmers Bank building on South Third wasn't included in the initial bid. That was just miscommunication between us and the designer. So we added that work back in. They gave us a pretty fair price. Remember, we previously purchased the granite for that early on in the project. We purchased it at a different change order. But the actual installation and the pouring of the sidewalk, we put a new street light in there that we kind of threw in at the last minute. We had an extra street light down at the garage from previous streetscape projects that we threw onto South Third Street to take down an old light and remove some wires. So those are the major issues, major items that were replaced. This one's been weighing heavily on me for a month or two now. So I told Earl I just got to rip the Band-Aid off and bring it out here, and we'll talk about it. Talk about it in the light of day. But I do, with me, it's always, are we getting what we paid for? Did we get these improvements? And we did. I know that we did. Pace has been a really good partner with us throughout this project. I think we knew when we awarded the contract to them. We weren't we weren't going to get the cheapest contractor here, but we were getting the best contractor for this kind of project in Kentucky. And I think that showed throughout. I just wish we had done this on a monthly basis and not waited till the very end, which is what we're doing on Jenny Rogers. Like, I brought a few to you all from Jenny Rogers that's smaller, but I've brought a few that say, hey, here's a handful of things we've had to do over the past month. That's what this should have looked like. Probably would have got old because we'd be on like change order 18 at this point or something like that. But it would have been numbers that were smaller and easier to grasp, easier for you all to understand what you're looking at and what's all involved in it. But here we are. It's, we're going to do a celebration this Saturday, and hopefully Melanie was like, why couldn't you wait to do this after the ribbon cutting? But it's all happy. But no, I think this is something, and at the end of the day, every other change order we've done has been driven by either us adding something to the scope to the project or the state requiring a big change. This is really your like, all right, this is the change order of all the things you found throughout the project. And for it to be just slightly over 5% is not bad. That's not, it's 380,000 is a big number, but it's slightly over 5% of the total project cost. So if, like I said, done over time, it'd be right where we would want it to be.
The total would be the same, though.
Yes,
It's the
right.
same.
Right.
Don't have the same pocket.
Any questions or comments of Josh? Josh said let it come out in the light, but it's pitch dark outside, Josh. I'm sorry to tell you, buddy.
I think you framed it well. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I know.
Josh, in terms of, we requested 4th Street, west side of 4th Street, so that was on us, as well as the entrance into McDaniel's. But I think there's some safety that sometimes you just don't think about when you find all these coal shafts and there's wood underneath there. You got potential down the road to have a problem. So I think we're staying ahead of the curve in justifying this money. Yeah.
Is there a 24-month payout? Is there a plan to pay it off? Monthly installments?
Finance it.
Well, Commission, any other questions or comments?
This was agreed at the beginning of the contract to do it this way, correct?
Yes,
When you first
I say,
awarded?
like I said, in hindsight, we would have done that. We would have reconciled it on a monthly basis
Yeah.
instead of waiting until the end. But yes, it was, and this would have been, it would have delayed the project even more if we'd have said, no, you have to come back to us and ask for each one of these things ahead of time. So doing time and material on things like this is pretty common thing.
Yeah, we on the 3rd Street section, we had told you all that and I thought about this after he's out of sympathy for him. I tried to remember how we processed them before, but like on the coal chutes on 3rd Street, we had the contractor estimate an each and just say, well, every coal chute we get, we'll spend $5,000 on it. We ended up doing like 12, that kind of thing. But we didn't do that here. There is some additional work. The underground pipe you can't see. I think this is a good lesson, and I know it doesn't seem like that for the average person out there, but this is a situation where if you watch the contractor, they were there every day. They worked. They were not vacant on the job weeks on end, then coming back. So it was one of those where Josh and the two managers on the project really, they documented that they were occurring, that these things happened, and then they were documenting their expenses, as you can see by what level of detail the PACE was able to provide. And Josh did have the things in his notes. And so they communicated with each other, but I think out of the maintaining of the schedule, they just kept trying to push through it, and probably we should have been done a better job asking Josh to bring it up. And so I probably let him get too far on that myself, just because I was used to it. And so we will just add that, and just for what it's worth.
I think the one thing that I'll toss out is that in reading through all the information, I couldn't find anything that I said, well, we should not have done that. Let's take that out.
Correct.
all
It's all a
things-
betterment. They
Yeah, it was
were all
good.
betterments that we would have
Yeah.
been required to pay for.
They appear to be all very necessary, but
Did you say there's gonna be another change order?
No,
Okay.
there should not
I
be.
thought you said you hoped this
No,
was the last.
yeah, yeah. I'm not,
Put it in.
I never want to be completely definitive because you never know what's going to happen. 99% sure, last change order.
Okay.
it's been a successful project. We've taken an appropriate amount of time, we've gotten it done right. And we will reap the benefits for the next 25 to 50 years, maybe. Okay, so I've been doing this for over a year now. I made one motion tonight. I think the chair needs to make a second motion tonight. And that is that I move to approve, is it change order number 5? Yes. As presented by Josh, as nervously presented by Josh.
I will second to allow him a head start.
Long weekend, Josh, but it's okay, no, okay. Any other comments or questions on this one? If not, all those in favor of this resolution say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Josh, thank you, man.
Thank you all.
Melanie, you can go to work on that tourist attraction now, the Underground Railroad through the downtown Danville.
Okay, well, I hate to get to this. See, Dexter looking at me, so I can't ask for a motion to go into executive session.
For personnel matters, please, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Is there a motion to go into executive session? You all can say no.
Okay. I'll make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matter pursuant to KRS 618101F.
Thank you, ma'am.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, staff, you have some recommendations for us?
Yes, sir. Staff is recommending the promotion of Ben Ray to the position of police sergeant. Benjamin Ray.
Wow. What's your pleasure? Is there a motion?
I move we approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye, and tell them congratulations. Wow, that's pretty neat. Chair would like to entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Well, good.